Leaders in tech are burning out at an absurd rate. Ctrl+Alt-Delete with Lisa Duerre is a no BS conversation with one of the top female executives who spent over 25 years in Silicon Valley. If you're suffering from the always-on, never good enough, will replace you today machine called the tech space, this show's for you. Here's Lisa.
Hey, everybody, Lisa Duerre here, and I'm so excited about today. Now, listen, I say this, I know, but I got to tell you, I bring people on to this podcast, this platform for you, because I know them, I respect them, and I really enjoy what they have to say, and I'm always learning too. So today, our special guest, our featured guest today is Sveta Parilova. Now, I don't speak the language where I would say this beautifully. However, my daughter does. So I was practicing with her. She's like, Mama, it's Sveta. Sveta. So I hope I'm giving that justice, my friend. Sveta Parilova is someone who I've known. Has it been 3 years? I think it's been about three or four.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3. Yeah, definitely 3. Yeah.
Yeah. So we
Fourth
met.
year.
Because, right? Yeah. So we both met in our coaching mastermind. And right away we bonded. We both came from corporate. We both had executive roles. We were both wanting to make a difference and an impact in this world. And having her in my safe and sacred space, which don't we all need? You know, a mastermind circle of peers who know the ins and outs and the ups and downs. Like, she has just been one of my true rocks. So I invited her today to share her wisdom, her insight, her perspective on all things when it comes to leadership, and specifically where she and I love to double click, you know, women in leadership and burnout, as well as a working parent being in a leadership role. So sit back and get ready, because we're going to keep it real. And now let me give you the formal introduction, because this is part of the process, right? So Sveta is a leadership coach. She supports high performers and female leaders in finance. And I'm going to double click on that real quick, because don't we all know, whether you're in finance or not, the critical components of finance in any business. So whether you're a finance leader or you partner with finance, you want to tune in today. And Sveta helps them increase their impact at work without burning out, and to be able to be present for their families and loved ones. Can you see the connection already? Exactly. She believes that everyone has leadership potential unique to them, and that the corporate world will benefit from the diversity of leadership styles. Welcome, Sveta. I just want to jump right in, but I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for being here today.
I'm excited to be here with you, Lisa.
Yeah.
And thank you for the introduction. It's really great to be here. And you're right, we have a lot in common. We share a lot of kind of the same school of thought. And I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you so much. And I'll tell you, as much as Sveta and I have a lot in common, we're very good about ringing the bullshit bell on each other and holding each other accountable too. So you're not going to get like a big old love fest, right? You're going to get real talk, real truth. And what you can really count on for her and I is to bring it to you straight, because we know how important it is, especially at this time. So Sveta, tell me, let's talk about burnout first, because it's something that the world is experiencing right now. I call it the collective virus of burnout. What's your experience with burnout? You know, how does it show up in your life? What does it look like for leaders? You know, give me some insight for our listeners here, so they can perhaps identify it in themselves or those they're leading, even those they love. Like, describe burnout through your experience.
Sure. Well, let me tell you a little bit. So I'm kind of take a step back. So I'm Russian, right? I grew up in Siberia, and I came here over 20 years ago. And so I was so happy, like, you know, how I was looking for a job without having a job permit. That's a very exciting story. But I got a job at a bank, and I was super excited, and I grew, and I, like, you know, fast forward 15 years, I am an SVP. I manage a $500 million portfolio of clients. I have 2 beautiful children. I have a condo in a hip place in, you know, area in Brooklyn. Like, I have everything that you want, right? And I am just burning out. Like, I remember one day I left my office and I went to grab lunch, and I just picked up a phone. I called my husband, and I was crying on the phone, because I was like, I just can't do it anymore. It's just too much. It's like too intense. And like, and I realized I'm doing all these deals, and I was putting a huge deals on the books, right? They're very prominent. They're prominent in the bank. They have large millions of dollars, but it also, like, what it costed me, right? It this feeling of, I remember I was running a train, taking a train back home, and the only thing I could do back home, on my way home, is listen to one particular tune on music and one meditation tape. Like, everything else was just too much stimulation. Because that was the burnout, was when you don't have a mental capacity to take one extra thing, especially if that thing is not related to work. Because, like, you prioritize everything that relates to work so much. And so you cut off all, like, I was cutting off all non-essential stuff, which includes self-care, which often includes connection, which includes relationship, like at work and at home as well. Sometimes, like, you just don't have this any bandwidth to deal with that. So that was my experience with the burnout. And I think oftentimes people, like, obviously you experience it as, stressed, anxious, exhausted. But one interesting thing that I saw in the leanin.org, recently, they said that the feeling of, like, berating yourself for not doing enough and not being good enough is a sign of burnout. And I was like, that's interesting. But then when I think about it, it makes sense, because people who get into the burnout are the people who are really, really high achievers, and they want to do more. And they get to this point when it's never enough, you're not doing enough. And then you start getting into this loop of, like an imposter syndrome in a way. So that's what the burnout was for me. And at some point I snapped, right? I picked up the phone and I called my boss and said, I don't want to do this anymore. It was that was my way out. Like, it was a knee-jerk reaction, but that was my way out. I could only find. And what happened to me, Lisa, this, if you remember, that I stayed after that for 2 more years in my role. Like, after I came out, I came out and told to my boss, I can't do this anymore. It's too much. And for various reasons, like, I had to support the team. It was a difficult time, and support my boss, but I stayed for 2 more years. And that was the best thing that happened to me, really, in like, looking backwards, because through these 2 years, I unraveled so much crap that we tell ourselves as women in corporate, as high achievers in corporate, like what we should do, what we shouldn't do, how we should behave. I unraveled so much of that. And like, after it was done, I was healed, and I figured out that there are different ways of being, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, actually. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I really want to unpack this. And what I want to say to everybody is, the question was, what does burnout feel like? And where you went with it is so beautiful, because you also talked about what to do about it. And I think for the world right now, and I'm just going to, like, call it for what it is, especially the female leaders that also have children at home, or people that they're caring for, whether it's elder care or whatever, right? With everything that's happening and the change in the environment right now. I was reading yesterday in one of my mom groups. The question was something around, have you asked for any flexibility at work? Right. And most of them are like, no, I'm afraid to. No, I don't want to rock the boat. Yeah. No, this, no, that. How could you do that? Tell me what to say. Like, all of this leaning in for each other. And what I heard you say is, I picked up the phone and called my boss and said, I can't do it anymore. I called my husband crying. It was like, this isn't working. I didn't have capacity for one more thing. And yet you stayed to unravel. And I think we should really focus some time here, because I think there's some nuggets that perhaps we take for granted after being on the other side of it, that people listening right now, whether you're CEOs, whether you're on the board, whether you're the senior leader of your division, hearing what we're about to talk about is going to help you not only help your employees, which is critical for your business results, but also perhaps help yourself, right? So I too had that moment. Mine was in the emergency room. I thought I was having a heart attack. Turns out it was a allergic reaction to antibiotics, because I kept taking antibiotics for bronchitis that was chronic. And I realized I needed to, hence this podcast, Ctrl+Al-Delete. I needed to reboot. You're talking about a reboot. My path was a little different. I ended up, my doctor put me on a medical leave. And then I went back in and I stayed for at least another year, so that I could prove to myself that I owned my own experience, that I didn't want to blame it on the company. You know, their standards are high, this, that, the other. I was
Yep.
like, what do I have control over? And what are the things that I'm really like giving my power away, whether it's boundaries or projects, budgets, etc. So can you tell us a little bit more from your own experience and guidance to those that you lead and coach? When you stayed for those 2 years and unraveled, what were some of your learnings or ahas that the listeners now can really take to heart and reflect in their own lives and see what they may be able to do right now rather than waiting for that teary phone call?
Yeah, sure. And I start with what you mentioned, Lisa, about blaming the corporate versus taking responsibility for what's going on with you, because I truly believe that this is the first step to your own healing. And I think it took me, I think I didn't even until the end of these 2 years, I don't think I took the full responsibility for that it was all on me. Because, to be fair, corporate will take whatever you give. It's like the more you give, the more it will take. It's just the nature of the beast. Their goal is to increase the revenues for the shareholders. So you give, they take. And it's often, I also want to recognize that it's also very difficult to just like put the foot down and stop giving, because like the culture is promoted. Like I remember like in my job, it was like the people were asking, like, how are you doing? And you were supposed to like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I'm so much work. I'm so exhausted. And that proves
like a badge of honor, right?
Yeah, it's a badge of honor. You prove that you're essential, that you're doing, and you buy into this, and you start, and it starts becoming your reality. But in the end of the day, is that it is your responsibility, because nobody will come. Like you may have a great leader who can come and say, okay, well, you need to take time off, you need to do this. You may have a good manager, but as a whole, the corporate environment is not set up to look after you like in this way. It's not like a warmy, fuzzy kind of environment necessarily. And it's your job. It's your job to look after yourself in this way. So, and sometimes it takes courage. And that's the hardest thing, I think, for me, was to take this responsibility, admit that it's me. I think after I was left and I started doing like coaching, my blog, I had a blog which says, it's not corporate, it's you. And I know it sounds kind of blunt, but in a way, I think taking this responsibility is not about like beating yourself up, but it's like taking your power back and say, if I created it, I can unravel it. Yes, it may ruffle some feathers, it may take some courage, and may have some difficult conversation have to be involved, but I have a power to do this. And so this is the first step. And I think it's another thing that when I look at the burnouts, like we blame ourselves for this, because my go-to methods, and many women and men too, like when things are hard, we push ourselves through. That's what we do, right? When we are feel, and because when we ignore our body signals that we need to take time off and take a break, because we also judge them as being weak. Like, you can't do this. Like, I'm at this level, I have to keep doing, I have to keep pushing. But oftentimes it's also just, especially if you keep growing in your career responsibilities or title, what have you, it's like sometimes you get to the point of like, what got you here will not get you further. And that's the reality. And also, but at that point, you don't know what you don't know. So you can't, like, you instead of accepting it as a reality and normal part of the progress, say, well, look, at this stage, I may need some coaching, or I need some training. And actually, I believe that coaching is really, really awesome at this point, because coach help you see from yourself from a different perspective that you at that point are not seeing. But that's also sometimes it's just a simple and logical step in the progress. And it may be difficult for the leaders, especially at a certain level, to accept this, because that is viewed as a sign of weakness, but it's not. It's a sign of growth, really.
Wait, say that again. Say that part again. That's viewed as a sign of weakness, but it's not.
It's not. It's a sign of growth. It's not a weakness. It's a sign of growth and maturity. You're getting to the next level, like, really. Right.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So I'm going to reflect back for a minute, because there's a couple nuggets I heard in what you were saying. Number one is recognize it's your problem to solve. Don't give it to somebody else to solve. Like, what decisions, what are you saying yes to? What are you not delegating? What are you giving up? If self-care, right? Number two, the badge of honor of busyness is bullshit. I'm going to use my words. You didn't say that. I said that. These are my words. The badge of busyness, this whole culture of busyness, actually is deteriorating your innovation and your ability to be agile and really bring out the best in yourself. These are my words for what you said. Did I get it right?
Yep.
Okay.
It's a great way
All
to
right.
put
And then
it. Yeah.
number 3 was, as your career grows, it's not that you should keep going at the same pace or the same level, but every step is new, which requires you to look at things differently and almost reset, because you're not weak because it seems harder. You're actually growing because you're stepping into something bigger.
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Yeah. I think that, that last piece is that like, imagine if you're growing to completely new level, like qualitatively new, there will be times when you don't know certain things, and that's okay. It's just like, I think for leaders, it's at a certain point, I know, at least I felt it. I'm like, I should know the answers to everything. I should know everything.
Right.
And it's like, because if not, then I am like an imposter, right? But you keep growing and you keep taking new tasks which you've never done before.
Yeah.
And it's a very logical to accept that, have this humility and humbleness, that to say, well, there are things I don't know, and I don't, especially as you become a leader, you don't need to know everything, right? That's why you groom people and you delegate.
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't hear that last one right. I'm so glad. See, this is why I love feeding it back, because I want to make sure it really gets home. So whether you're driving in the car, listening to this, jogging, hiding in the bathroom from your kids for a minute and taking a break, like this, I want this point to really get made. What you're talking about and what I'm hearing, and I know it to be true, is that when you get rewarded for your knowledge, right, and your results, and eventually you get to a point where you can't possibly know everything, you have to reset your own mindset and figure out as a leader how to make it okay to not have all the answers, where you've been rewarded and recognized your whole career for having the answers. At some point, especially, listen, Sveta and I own our own businesses. We can't possibly know all the answers. Imagine, the leaders at the top. There's no way they know. And if you show up thinking you have to know it all, you're already in arrears. You're already on your way to burnout because you have the wrong expectation of yourself. Instead, be okay with not knowing and surround yourself with brilliant people and bring out the best in them. So collectively, you're stronger and you can be more agile and get the answers faster. That's, I think, what you were just saying. Did I?
Yeah.
That home?
Yeah,
okay, awesome.
It's a great way to put it. Yeah.
I'm saying that for me because I want to be the best interviewer I can. So I want to make sure that I'm highlighting what you're saying through my own lens in tech, right? So one of the things that really showed up for me, I'd love your feedback on, and you and I've talked about this on my own personal journey. One of my signs of burnout was I used to say I cope through eating, and I would go to the vending machine and get the potato chips or drink another Diet Coke because that might be healthier. I was gold at Starbucks the minute the app came out, right? So I was feeding myself a lot because I was feeling hungry. And when I took that medical leave and really started to listen to my body and really start to just sleep better, I was less hungry. And I used to think, oh, I'm just not stressed. Well, what I finally realized, and for those of you who might identify with overeating or caffeine addiction or sugar, this may really help in the burnout space, because what you put into your body, just like what you write in your code, right, that determines the output. So I finally realized, and it took me a long time, that I wasn't hungry, I was tired, and that I was craving energy through food choices that were poor as well as comfort. And had I just been going to bed at the same time every night, I would have been doing myself so much more good than harm. But this whole working till 2 a.m, getting home, making dinner, taking care of the family, whatever, right? And then everybody goes to bed, and then I'm up till 2, following up on emails, doing everything, going to sleep at, eating at like 1 a.m, drinking coffee at 8 o'clock at night, right? So my body never really got to rest. And I think that was one of my biggest learnings was I'm not hungry, I'm tired. Like I am depleted. And I'd love to know your experience, because I know that we haven't had the same struggles, but I do know you have seen this with your clients too. What are the symptoms besides nothing left in your tank, agitated and maybe weepy, right? Because weepy was certainly one for me. Feeling like there's nothing left. What other signs or symptoms should people be looking for, paying attention to?
As far as the burnout, it's interesting. I think what you say about the body is really, really important, because we do override our signals of our body as lower level information, or we're not used to even listening to them. Like what you say, like your body was telling you one thing and you were interpreting it differently because we're just not trained anymore to take those cues. And for me, I think my side was a little bit different. And what I also see sometimes, it's coming for, we talked about being like having that hyperachiever inside you, which is like, we think that productivity is great, we all strive for this, but at some point it becomes a hyperachiever. And for me, how it showed up, it was just like, it's the disconnection. It's like lack of connection. It was lack of connection with people. It was isolation. It seems like I don't have enough time to chit chat at people with work, or like, like have some conversations which are not related to the business I'm doing or productive, or like it's just so much stuff. I have to like sit down and put my head down and do this. And this all resulted in like, you start kind of like judging how you spend your time and how you like, this connection conversations as productive versus non-productive. And then it trickles down back to home, because you come home and, your tank is empty and your kid wants to talk about something silly. Like, do you really have time and energy to connect and to listen to that, and be fully present? So, and I was like really surprised, because like I am really people's person. I love people. I've always been curious about how people operate, how they deal. And then I was like, I feel so disconnected with people and isolated from people at work. And I think now that, like, based on the training and the things that I know now, it's a sign of me giving into this hyperachiever, which says like, okay, well, we can only do what's productive, and like having the conversation and chit chat is not productive. And sometimes those conversations will be productive, right? We know this, the connection is important, and relationship building is super vital at work and beyond. And at the end of the day, also, it just, without that connection, anything that we do in the productivity space does not matter at some point. Mm-hmm. Because you will get to this, but it's insatiable path, because you will always can achieve more and achieve more and achieve more, and it doesn't feed you with the simple things in life, like being connected, being truly connected to the humanity and your family and your loved ones. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's that showing up with that feeling of like losing this human side a little bit. I don't know, it sounds a little freaky, but I guess.
No, I totally feel you. And I think anyone in tech can understand that too, right? Because the thing is, when you are not yourself, right? And one tip I'll say, if anyone says to you, are you okay? You don't seem like yourself. You might be on the way to burnout, right? Because I was showing up angry. I would get very short-tempered. Like, I didn't yell at people at work, but I certainly had short temper at home too. So mm-hmm. One maybe tell, right, is if someone that you care about at work or you're leading and they're not themselves, being curious about that. And then also taking a look at doing your own inventory, right? One tell for me was, I love music. We all know this, right? And I would quit listening to music because there was no time mm-hmm. for music. So that whole, like, there's never time. There's not enough time. There is enough time, but your priorities are a little jacked. Hashtag real talk. You're prioritizing on the wrong things, right? So let's shift from signs and let's go into what you did and what you help your clients do. And what are some things that listeners today can do right now to let's say they already know they're burning out, or they're like, oh, I might be. What's something you can do right now that's tangible and is not going to like send you over the edge, to almost recalibrate and just give yourself the smallest amount of grace as you go on this journey to rebooting?
So I'll piggyback off of what you, Lisa, said about your music. And I'd say that it's, because I wanted to mention, it's I think asking your questions about, like, if somebody asks you a question, like, what are your 5 favorite songs, or what's your favorite song? And you're like, I don't know. Like, or like, what's your bucket list? And you can't answer this question. I think this is the sign also of like you said, your priorities are a little skewed. And so maybe, so initially you can just use that. Like coming back to like simple things, like listen to music. Like you may even like put it on your calendar and do it the way you know it first, and connecting to those things that are non-productive and have them scheduled in your calendar so that they look familiar and they're not being neglected. And the best thing that I found to get off of this loop is to start connecting to your body and connecting to your like sensories, mm-hmm. like experiences, and it can be anything. It can be like sight, touch, hear, like listening music goes into that category. Taste. So you got to come back to the simple things in life, and those can be, you know, like really enjoying your meal and not reading your emails while you're reading your meal, and not having you taken your lunch in front of the computer, but actually taking it away and you know, having this time and trying to enjoy it, because it will be difficult at first. It will be like you'll have this, you know, you'll have this anxiety, like, okay, where's my phone? How can I use this time? It's like I you know, I love multitasking, because then you use time effectively, but like avoid this and like really fight that, and take this very simple and take it one thing at a time, or put your song that you used to love when you're in college or something, remember that and put it on and just listen to it and dance, like, or you can do a dance break. Like, I know you and I are coming from the dance break crowd, so we'll have that
breaks, right? Yeah, well, that's why well, let me go there now. So, favorite song to raise your energy. What's your favorite go-to song? So
right now, I am going to "Can't Stop This Feeling" by Justin Timberlake. That's I have a couple, because I think so. I have that one, and then the song that you and I connected actually is the Shakira "Try Everything," because that was the time when we chose ourselves. Like, that was the event when we went, and you know, we chose to invest in ourselves and our coaching business at that. I did. I think maybe you for you it happened earlier, but for me that was the time when I chose myself, and I said, you know what, I'm going to prioritize myself, and the action was investing in the business, and that was the theme. So for me, it also remains an important song.
Yeah. So I want to really I want to lean into this for a second, because music, and it's so interesting because, you know, we're talking to leaders in tech who are very much rewarded and recognized for innovation and the next best tape out and the next, you know, product, and, you know, the customers that you're onboarding and supporting, the ones you're retaining. And to say music, like, I'm sure many listeners like, what the heck? But I want to say to you, before you became that leader in tech, before you got your, you know, PhD in, you know, electrical engineering, whatever, somewhere there's a soundtrack in your heart and soul. Somewhere there's a time when a song meant something for you, even if it brings you back to, you know, winning the baseball game or the first dance or a special birthday party. It doesn't matter. So what Sveta just talked about, the Shakira song, whenever I hear that song, I instantly get so filled with those memories and that energy, it automatically lifts me. So this isn't like, what, an average song is 3 minutes. Can all of you agree 3 minutes is worth your mental sanity and raising your energy? Try it in a team meeting. Ask your team what songs they like. Do what I just did. Build your own playlist. Like, something this simple will help you manage burnout, truly. And the other thing I would really love to just recommend and suggest is something I did that, especially now in this time when everyone's on camera, get really clear when camera matters and when it doesn't, because being on camera causes many people to feel like they have to be a certain way, right? With the right lighting, be in the right space. Where in the old days, pre everybody on Zoom, I did plenty of calls while I was walking. And one of the things I did when I came back to work after my medical leave is all my one-on-ones were walking one-on-ones. If you were in the office with me, we walked together. If you were in another location, we walked on the phone. And I basically came back and said, I don't want to burn out. I want to be my best, and I need to move more. Are you on board? Are you open to a walking one-on-one? And everybody said yes, because we all knew we needed to move more. But I built in my own accountability. And then once I did it, I couldn't go back. And then I was like, oh, I need to have walking one-on-ones. I mean, I saw a woman the other day on one of the Zoom calls I was on. She was on a treadmill and she put her camera over her treadmill. She's like, I'm going to keep walking. So I invite you, listeners, to think about however you can get some movement in your body, some music in your heart. Essential oils. This is my favorite smell. There might be something else for you, but even lotion, you know, my skin's dry. It's winter. So my lotion has a scent in it, and, you know, I can smell that and just get back in your body. I love what you're saying, Sveta, so much about staying in tune with your body is the first step to take, because that's everything, right? Your body is trying to tell you. Well, it was trying to tell me for sure.
Yeah.
So I love these tips. Is there anything you'd add besides music? I mean, so the five senses and the small.
The five senses, yeah. Yeah, the senses, and I think it like doesn't have to be anything too, too out there or too complicated. It's like we have the senses that like they were given us for a reason, and you can go as deep and as metaphysical about it as you want, or just go simple too and say, what, if I just think they're a simple like brain body connection, that if I focus on my sense of touch, just rubbing two fingers together and I feel my the ridges on my fingers, then that's already brings me out of that loop of potential, like if I feel stuck or if I feel like I'm like reciting certain things over and over, because your brain is very like good at creating stories. And at some point, like you can no longer tell like what story is real and what's not, but the body does not have that elaborate imagination with stories, so the body brings you back to your truth. And so that can be a great way also to snap out of the feeling stuck or feeling like you're on this hamster wheel of your thoughts. So that is that. Yeah. And I think really sometimes what I think is also, as far as the burnout, is sometimes it can be counterintuitive to give yourself permission to let it go and like let things, whatever's happening your way, like if you're feeling tough emotions or you're feeling down, sometimes it's best, like especially if it's very strong and very persistent, it's like almost there's no other way but let it happen, let it like kind of like wash over you in a way and like pass through rather than pushing it away. Because like when you're in the burnout, you're like, I have to do this, I should be, and like there are all these things, and also how we are used to operate as far as like always have to move forward. It can be, but then it creates the vicious cycle of keep deepening your burnout. So it's like take this step back, let it go, and sometimes even like feel like you can even feel and commiserate with yourself. Like have the chocolate, have the dark chocolate, the extra one that makes you feel good, and then feel what you feel, and then because like I guarantee you, if you do this, it will start unraveling, and it will kind of will transform. For you.
Thank you for saying that. Feel what you feel. I spent years denying those feelings, and everyone knows now I desire map and I pull truth bombs, and I'm constantly asking about core desired feelings, because was my secret to getting out of burnout, was getting really clear on how I wanted to feel. And one of the things, the walking meeting, I wanted to feel healthy and connected. I can do that in a walking meeting and feel both of those things, so I just love where you're going with this. And one thing I think that would be really helpful. So that mom group I was talking about, where they were like, I don't even know how to bring it up or how to ask for flexibility or even advocate for myself because I'm so afraid I'll lose my job or rock the boat. I know you've been writing a lot about that lately on LinkedIn. What advice do you have for the people that are wanting to have the conversation that you had when you picked up that phone and said, I'm not doing it like this anymore? Tips, tricks, insight, things to think about to, find that courage and have that conversation. What's the guidance you're giving your clients these days?
Sure. So having this conversation, so like, first of all, you can view this as, I think the first tip, and I also shared it with some moms, and they like really got instant relief, is that view your boss as also a human being. Like it's a human being with his or her own goals, challenges, and problems. And when you come from that place, and like your boss may even benefit from you having this conversation, because they're also sitting there scratching their heads. What do they do? Bosses vary how they deal with the situation. Some people, they're happy to try and like go business as usual, even though business is far from being as usual. But many people are trying to do their best, but they just don't know how. And there is a way to have this conversation in a non-confrontational and non-kind of complaining way, if you try to keep both sides, interest of the both sides at heart when you prepare for this conversation. I think when I did my conversation, it probably was not as balanced as I make it sound right now. I think when I was like, I can't do this anymore. That's not quite but having said that, I also, because I stayed for 2 years, because I did take into consideration the needs of my boss, and it was a very amicable decision. And another thing is, I want to say, is that recognize and respect your personal brand. Because if you're at this level, you've been in this career, you know, the clients I work with, they've been in this career for 10, 15 years plus. You already have a brand. You have a brand that you created with hard work. And this is the time when you can use it, not like in a manipulative way, but you've earned it. So at some point it's like, well, what was the purpose of putting all this hard work and being responsible? And people I work with a very high sense of responsibility, kind of borderline with obligation, and very hardworking, and like want to do the good job. You've been putting all this hard work, so you have this credit in a way with your company and your boss. And I think that's what, for me, that's what helped me. You know, I had a negotiated position. Like I was working part-time, I was working reduced hours, and I was in the client-facing role. It's like people like, that doesn't happen in the client-facing role, but it did. And the reason why it did, because throughout your career, you use your integrity and you were building this brand. And at some point, it's okay for you to respect your needs, desires, where you are right now, and utilize that credit that you build. So don't discourage and discount that part of what you've done up to now.
You just left me speechless, which doesn't happen very often. And that's so important. First of all, know that your boss is human. Look at them, talk to them as human to human, not so much about the hierarchy. Second, go take a look at your track record and your brand and all of the deposits you've made in the trust bank, in the bank of I can count on you, and know that you have every right to ask for some flexibility because of the work you've already done. So for those of you that have been in your role for a long time, this is gold. And, you know, I've never thought about it this way before. And I talk about brand a lot. Of course, when you've made the deposits, it's okay to ask, right? Of course, when you already have great results, it's okay to ask. But because you're in your head thinking, I should, you're almost giving your power. You're not almost. Okay. Hold up.
Yeah.
You are not almost. You are giving your power away when you don't leverage the deposits that you've made, right? From an ethical and integrity standpoint, that you need some flexibility right now, right? And I remember when I had my daughter, you know, I went right back 3 months, went right back to work, and I asked to work from home for a while because I really just needed to make sure, you know, I was nursing and I wanted to feed her easily. And I was really overwhelmed being a new mom, right? And I thought, I can't ask for anything else, right? Well, guess what? I broke my ankle. And then I needed more time off. And then I needed a different chair. So like life happened and I had to keep asking. And my ask button is broken. My give button is like all in, right? So how many hyperachiever, overachieving, amazing leaders that have give, they've never really learned how to ask or how to receive or how to really even initiate a conversation like that. I'm sure if someone asks you, you're going to consider it. But if you don't ask, the answer is always no. And then the story starts playing. Well, they should just know, blah, 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 blah. So I love this. Your boss is human. See your boss as a human being. Don't give your power away with all the deposits you've made, and know that you have a brand, and also that they're probably going to want to keep you. And it's okay to ask, like, don't ask for the moon, ask for what you really need, you know, get really clear. And then I'll add this, with all of the trainings I do on the impact playbook and the influence roadmap, your ask always has to be grounded in not just about you. It has to be how it's good for the business, how it's good for your boss. So get really clear before you ask why it's going to benefit them. And it could be as simple as, I'm really at my best once my kids have their naps. I'd love to take an hour before and then be all in on all my emails and follow up at this time. Can we agree that that works? Or, you know, for me to be productive with our customers, you know, I support them in a different time zone. I'd like to start my day later so I can be rested and totally on my game, you know, whatever, right? So maybe you have an example too, Sveta, around how do you make that ask in a way that it's about the decision maker and supporting the business too? Because it's easier for leaders to say yes when it's about you and the business. It's easier to justify.
Yeah. And it's a great point. And I remember that I actually had this when I had my daughter. She's almost 8 now, but when I heard her, I also like had really struggled to go back to work fully, and I was like not sure. And at that point, I'm pretty sure like I already had my brand. Like I know that my boss really valued me and she depended on me in many ways. And I actually worked with a coach. It was a short engagement, but she got me to that. And I went and what I negotiated is really unheard of. I was working, I think like maybe 30 hours a week. Which was spread out. And obviously like I have Blackberries and cell phones and I worked when I needed to, but I was showing up at the office, I think 2 times a week. I was working from home 2 times a week and 1 day I was off. That was like an unheard of arrangement. And people were like, still like to this day, people were like, many people couldn't get from the same person. They couldn't get like working from home 1 week. And like, they're like, how did you do this? And I think it's like 2 things. It's like being grounded with your brand and like what you really work hard and what you put in. And also, go in there and presenting your case from the point of view that saying, if I go back and if I have this time with my daughter, I will be much more engaged and I will be much more efficient because it can be as simple as that, right? You don't have to like build the entire business plan
Totally.
like into that, but it's like it's true because like if I am resentful and I feel like I have to go back and I'm not seeing my child or like what have you, I would not perform as I could be at work. But like you can say, me, that I always get the job done. And I think that's what I told my boss. It was a while ago, but like you always, you know me, like this is my, like using my brand, right?
Yep.
That I always get the job done. And that's true. And the boss knows this. And if I get this, whatever you need, I will be much more productive. I will be much more content and it will result in me performing better. So that can be as simple as that, really. So it worked in my case. Like I'm an example, it works.
Yeah, I love it. And I love this example so much, especially as you're leading your clients forward now, because you actually did the work. Like there's so many coaches out there that got their certification, but haven't been inside corporate, right? You've been in it. So anyone who's working with you, they get the real deal, right? And that's one of the things I love about is bringing my experience in tech forward. So you actually did the work, and that I think it can inspire and really help people, which is why I wanted to pull that out of you. It's so good. And then, for those of you running companies and, being the leads in your divisions, one of the things I think for you to really think about and really get clear on right now is what your real priorities are. So many leaders are, requiring being online all the time and being on camera all the time and just kind of hunkering down because this is so new for this diverse, remote situation going on. And I think it's really important for you as leaders to think about, why are you doing that? Like if you trust your people and you have high performing people, why don't just work that out together and have a conversation with them about what do they need to be their best versus, checking online data and making sure everyone's on Messenger all the time and kind of, squishing people. I think right now what's so critical, the more flexibility you can create based on the relationship with each individual and the more creative you can be with your organization and your departments to give people some leeway when they're performing, the better off you're all going to be. But if you're the leader who's just like, I need to see this and they need to be on all the time and keep your phone by your bed and, we are in crisis mode, like, I don't think anyone's going to work for you when this is all done. Like that does not show humanity. That does not show leadership. That is control, right? And we are now in a situation where the world needs flexibility, agility, and innovation. And the way you're going to get that is to give that to the organization that you lead. So a little soapboxy. Yeah. This is where I get like, this is always happens to me because I'm like, listen up. So listen, go have those conversations. Look at it for yourself. What standards are you holding for yourself that aren't necessary right now? What projects can you let go of? What deadlines can you, spread out? And then how can you be agile with your team so they can really get what they need and be loyal? Because the thing is, like everyone's sitting in place right now, but when things change and you don't have loyalty, you're going to be in a world of hurt. So I just say, get in front of it. Right. So this has just been, you've inspired me to get on the soapbox again. It's just, I just think we're just all running so fast. It's like, here's your little, coffee chat with us. Right. So I'd love to know too, one thing about you, when people are getting to know you, like what's something about you that nobody knows or few people know that, we could just pull into this conversation. I know you talked about, when you came to the United States, but, give us a fun fact about Sveta.
I wanted to mention you that on the third year of university, I was considering dropping out and going for dance full time.
Wow.
But I think what will be more interesting for people is that it's how I was looking for a job when I came in, and I came in here on a wife visa because my husband was studying here, and I came here. He was doing his PhD in New York, and I came here, and I was like, but I was like very like I was working in Moscow, I was think tank, and I was planning to go to like investment bank to do economic research. I was like on this drive to career, and I come in and I have no right to work. I have like no work permit. So how I was looking for a job was quite interesting, and I was remembering for myself recently in relation to like what I'm doing now, like growing the business, and also the unprecedented things that we all are going through, and how we were able to at times hustle through things and not get it bog us down. But because I was going to basically was working for like I had to work for free, and I was looking for people. I didn't know that many. I got a couple of networking names from my friends back in Moscow, and I was reaching out to people, but it was really, really, making things up on the fly, going to the conferences, cocktail parties, which I couldn't go because I was not invited, and like meeting people up there. And it just seemed like I was like, could I do it now? But I did it, and that's how I found my job. Like I found my job. Like it was not as straightforward. It took some time and some luck, and I met some very, really, really good people who wanted to help. But that's what I think it takes is just don't get too much by playing by the rules. Like I don't want to say it like in a bad way, but keep it open and keep it that where do we want to go, and like keep this forward focus going forward. And then what do we need to do to get there? I mean, obviously you're staying within the parameters of your integrity and your ethics and moral and everything, but I think especially living in the corporate for so many years, we get a little bit like boxed up in how we operate and what can we do, what's the right thing to do, or I did at least. I know many people may not have had it. And then when I look back, the things I've done when I was in my 20s, it was me and I did it. So I can do it again. And you can look at any situation that comes your way in a very fresh and open way, and it will lead you to a different result. It will lead you to a place that you want to go, and you'll have fun along the way.
Oh my gosh. I had no idea that you came over on a spouse visa and had no right to work. Like that is, that's a lot, especially in a new country. So when I think about tech, so many folks here on visas, so many folks coming to a new country to really get the experience, being in America and working for a tech company. And I think about even growing your career in corporate with what you're saying, because one of the things that showed up for me when I'm listening to you is I kind of did that too in my own career, right? I made sure to network outside of my team. I made sure to build relationships across business units. I was really much about, just like you're talking about, looking for those relationships and connections. And I guess as I look back at that now, I was looking for my next career or my next move, even inside. And so what I'm hearing you say, the pull through that's showing up for me is being new, even not speaking the language or knowing anybody is not a reason to not excel. It's actually a beautiful opportunity for you to be innovative and creative with the relationships you're building and the clarity on what's next for you. And so I just think I love this question so much, because look at how it just ties together and how inspiring it is for anybody on this call right now to think about, where am I playing it safe or where am I taking it easy? Not necessarily to give you more work, but for you to really think about your priorities. Even if you're the leader of your company, what's the next merger and acquisition? Where are you going to go? To the frontline, tech person writing code in the customer support group. How can we make it better? So I'm just really grateful for your answer to this question. And I love getting to know this about you, especially when I think about the people that you work with too, that you're bringing that experience in and showing them what's possible. And again, having done it. I mean, who doesn't want a coach who's been there? So I would just love to know, how can people that are listening that want to know more about the types of leadership work you do and to, maybe get on your blog or your LinkedIn area, how can people find you? What's the best way to find you?
Sure. Yeah. The best way to find me is you can find me either on LinkedIn or you can go to my website, which is svetaparilova.com. And I know I make it difficult to people, but this is it's my first name and last name.com. And on LinkedIn, you can find me as well. It's Svetlana Parilova, and I would love to connect. And I love talking to people, and if I can support and help and serve at this time, that would be awesome. I have a blog, and if people go on my website, they can sign up. And I try to write it more. It's like a newsletter, but I try to write it more as a blog. Start sharing my journey as well, leaving the corporate and how it all unravels to me. So that's one way to also stay in touch.
Yeah. And I'll put all that in the show notes so everyone has easy access to you. Last question before we wrap up, because, I'm a huge fan of core desired feelings as the pull through for all decision making. What are your core desired feelings? Just to inspire people with, some ideas.
Sure. So my core desired feelings would be confident, free, joyful, impactful, and authentic.
Joyful.
I know I'm greedy with the core desired feelings. Confident, yeah, joyful, confident, free, impactful, and authentic.
Game on, people. That is honestly, that's my experience of Sveta Parilova. This is I love ending this way with you today, because that is exactly who I know in this woman, in this leader, in this amazing business owner who is moving the needle for so many that she's coaching, and those that she's just reaching through her blog. Like, listen, anyone she coaches, she's helping move the needle, but she has a much bigger impact than that. And she is so authentic and joyful. Just get around her and watch joy happen. It's just been such a pleasure having you today, Sveta. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story. And I'm thrilled to have had you on Ctrl+Delete. I think there's a lot here that people can benefit from real time, and it's just been awesome having you.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. It's been great to be here, and I wish everyone a good week.
Right? I know. Yes, exactly. All right, everyone.
We're getting through, people.
Take good care, everybody.
That was great content, but let's be honest. If you don't get the support you need and start making changes in your life and work as a leader in tech, you can expect regret and burnout in the near future. Lisa can help you get kick-ass results at work without burning out, so you can be present for the moments that matter to you and your loved ones. Take your first step at rebootwithlisa.com.